You think you miss them. That's the story you've been telling yourself. You miss their voice, their messages, their presence, the way they made you feel. But here's a question that might change everything. If they came back today, exactly as they were, would you still want them? Not the version you imagined, not the version you hoped they would become. The real version, the one who disappointed you, the one who pulled away, the one who never fully showed up. Because sometimes the hardest person to let go of isn't the person you lost, it's the future you created with them. And that future can feel more real than reality itself. One of the most confusing experiences after a breakup is realizing that time passes, but your feelings don't seem to. You know, the relationship wasn't perfect. You know they hurt you. You know there were warning signs. You know there were things missing. Yet somehow your mind keeps returning, not just to what happened, but to what could have happened. You remember conversations that never happened, trips you never took, memories you never made, versions of the relationship that only existed in your imagination. And the strange thing is, those imagined moments can hurt more than the real ones. That's why some people stay attached long after the relationship ends. Not because the relationship was extraordinary, but because the fantasy became emotionally real, it attaches to possibilities. Most people assume attachment is about the person, but often it's about what the person represents. Think about it. When you first meet someone, you know very little about them. Yet within weeks, sometimes days, your mind begins creating stories. Stories about where this could go, who they could become, who you could become together. Your brain starts filling in blank spaces. You don't just see the person, you see potential, and potential is powerful. Because reality has limits, potential doesn't. Potential can be perfect. Potential never disappoints. Potential never argues. Potential never chooses someone else. Potential exists in a world where everything works out, and that's why it can become more emotionally attractive than reality. The attachment isn't always to the person standing in front of you. Sometimes it's to the future your mind quietly built around them. Think about someone you've struggled to let go of. Now ask yourself, how much of what you miss actually happened, and how much of it existed in your imagination? Most people never separate those two things. That's where the confusion begins. Here's something strange. Reality stops when the relationship ends, but fantasy doesn't. The person leaves, the imagination stays. And because the imagination stays, it keeps evolving. Your mind continues writing chapters that never happened. Maybe if timing had been different. Maybe if they healed. Maybe if you had said the right thing. Maybe if circumstances changed. Maybe one day they'll realize. Maybe one day it'll work. Notice what's happening. The real relationship has ended, but the imagined relationship is still alive. And every day, your mind spends energy feeding it. This is why some people remain emotionally attached for years. Not to the person, to the possibility. Because possibilities never fully die. They remain unfinished. And unfinished stories are difficult for the brain to release. Most people believe they're grieving one thing, the person, but often they're grieving two. The first loss is obvious. You lost them. The second loss is hidden. You lost the future you expected. The future where things finally were. The future where you felt chosen. The future where you felt loved. The future where all the waiting finally made sense. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the future hurts more than the person, because the future represented something bigger. Hope, meaning, belonging, validation. The relationship wasn't just a relationship. It became a solution to loneliness. A solution to self-doubt, a solution to feeling unseen. So when the relationship ends, it can feel like those dreams disappear too. This is why some people struggle to answer a simple question. What exactly do you miss? Because the answer isn't always a person. Sometimes it's a promise. Memory is not a recording. Memory is a storyteller, and storytellers leave things out. After a breakup, your mind often begins editing. The beautiful moments become brighter. The painful moments become quieter. The affection becomes larger. The disappointment becomes smaller. Suddenly you remember who they could be, not who they repeatedly showed you they were. This isn't weakness. It's human psychology. The brain naturally protects emotionally meaningful memories, but there's a cost. The more reality fades, the stronger the fantasy becomes. And eventually, you start comparing reality to an imagined version of someone who never truly existed. No real person can compete with that. Imagine a woman named Maya. She meets someone who seems different. He's charming, attentive, interesting. The connection feels immediate. They talk for months, but the relationship never fully develops. He's inconsistent, avoids commitment, disappears and returns, makes promises he doesn't keep. Yet years later, she still struggles to move on. Why? Not because he was perfect, he wasn't. Not because the relationship was amazing, it wasn't. She's attached to who she believed he would become. The future version, the healed version, the committed version, the version that finally chooses her. And every time she misses him, she's often missing that imagined version more than the real one. The real one already showed her who he was. The fantasy kept showing her who he could become. Take a moment. Think about the person who still occupies space in your mind. Now separate them into two categories: who they actually were and who you hoped they would become. Be honest. Who are you missing more? The person who repeatedly showed you their limitations, or the future version you kept waiting for? This question can feel uncomfortable because it reveals something many people spend years avoiding. Sometimes we don't fall in love with reality. We fall in love with possibility. This might be the most important realization in the entire video. The fantasy isn't only about them, it's about you. The future you imagined reflected your deepest desires. Maybe you wanted stability. Maybe you wanted acceptance. Maybe you wanted to finally feel chosen. Maybe you wanted proof that love could stay. The fantasy became a mirror. It reflected everything you longed for, which is why losing it hurt so deeply. It wasn't just a person leaving. It felt like your dreams left too. But here's the shift. If those desires came from you, they don't disappear when the relationship ends. The fantasy revealed your needs. It didn't create them. And that means the future you imagined is still possible, just not necessarily with the person you attached it to. The moment many people begin healing is the moment they stop asking, "How do I get them back?" and start asking, "What was I hoping they would give me?" Because the second question leads inward. The first keeps you trapped. What if the person you're struggling to let go of isn't actually the thing you're holding on to? What if you're holding on to a story, a possibility, a future, a version of life that felt meaningful? Because if that's true, then the pain starts making sense. You're not grieving reality, you're grieving imagination. And imagination can be surprisingly difficult to bury, because unlike reality, it never fully disappoints us. So maybe the question isn't, why can't I stop missing them? Maybe the better question is, what part of the future am I still holding on to? Because that's often where the attachment lives. Not in the relationship, not in the memories, not even in the person, but in the story. The story of what could have been. And here's the strange thing. The moment you realize you're grieving the fantasy, you stop needing the person to complete it. Because the future you wanted was never trapped inside them. You simply attached it to them. And once you see that, the person begins to look different. The relationship begins to look different. Even the heartbreak begins to look different, because maybe you never missed them as much as you thought. Maybe you were missing the dream. And once you can tell the difference, you finally begin to let go.